Welcome to the Bike Life Podcast by Warm Showers Foundation, where we will be sharing knowledge, experience, tools, and stories of touring cyclists and hosts from around the world. I'm Tara Lee, the woman behind the scenes at Warm Showers Foundation, the leading platform for cyclists looking for hosts and to connect with a passionate international community. Find out more by visiting us at Warmshowers.org. Now, on to the show. Today's guest has loved being in nature since he was young. He was introduced to bike touring by his father, who took up bike touring and biking after 72 years old and his 6 horses were stolen. What great stories we have to share today. And he believes that nothing is impossible when you set your mind to it. And I'm really excited to talk about this topic. So welcome to the show, Tadeo.
Thank you, Taverly. I'm very excited to be here with you.
Tell everybody where you're currently located. Where are you from?
I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I'm actually in San Isidro. It's like 20 kilometers northwest Buenos Aires.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining me. And I must warn listeners, it is definitely raining where Tadeo is, and it is thundering and lightninging and raining where I am. So if you hear some little rumbles in the background, just know that we're both in very different parts of the world, and yet we're both experiencing some storm season. So if you hear noise, for those of you listening, just bear with us. Okay, so Tadeo, let's start with this introduction to bike touring after your father had his 6 horses stolen. What an interesting story. Tell us about that.
That's right. Yes, when he turned 72, my father he always had horses. When he was a young kid, he lived in a farm in Buenos Aires province, and he had more than 6 horses. His family was living in the middle of nature. And when he married my mother, and they bought a small farm in Pilar, 50 kilometers northwest Buenos Aires. And there they used to have 6 horses. And one day they stole the horses, and my father decided to buy a bicycle just to have something to do in his free time. And he started meeting friends and bike teams in Pilar area. And he became a fan of bicycles. And I was impressed because he was quite he was not retired, but he was 72 years old, and he started something completely new for him. And he transmitted me the love and the passion for bicycles.
Yes. And when did that happen? When did he suggest that you go hop on a bike and give it a try?
I remember one summer I was going to take my vacations. In Argentina, we start with a 2 weeks vacation for a whole year. And after 5 years, we have 3 weeks. And after 10 years, we have 1 month. I was having, by that time, 3 weeks vacation, and I didn't know, of 1 month vacation. And I decided to do a bike trip. My father suggested me to start with El Camino de Santiago in Spain, as he did it one year before. And so I decided to follow almost the same path as he did. We both started in France, and I ended up in Oporto, in Portugal. It was a ride, El Camino Francés, that started in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France, and then ended up in Oporto. In Compostela, and then I did a bit more up to Oporto in Portugal.
Beautiful. And did you prepare for that?
Yes, but I started going to the gym and doing some spinning, but it never is the same as doing it in the real road, you know.
Right.
I remember at that time it was not so common to have Google Maps on your phone, and I did not have internet connection abroad. So I bought a map in France, and I didn't know the signals of the map, and I ended up doing what I thought it was a shortcut, but actually demanded me much more time than doing another road because it crossed all over some mountains, and I had to sleep in the middle of the mountain. And a French family, they host me, and it was beautiful, totally unexpected.
That's amazing. And so from there, you obviously developed a love, knowing that you already had this love of being in nature since you were young. You used to camp with your family. Like your father really gave you the experience and the love of nature. And so after you did that tour, knowing you had this love of nature, what came next?
Well, afterwards, I have to say first that on that trip, I really didn't know nothing about bicycles. I remember that I didn't know how to change a flat tire or anything. And I met guys and friends from bicycle teams that they wait to be really prepared for when they do their first trip. I was not prepared at all, and I could do it. So I want to encourage all of the persons that want to do a bike tour, just start. I mean, you don't have to have 100% knowledge of bicycles for doing a trip. And answering your question, after the Camino de Santiago, I went to Cuba, uh, and I did the whole island by bicycle with a friend of mine, and it was really amazing as well. And also, I went to Uruguay, which is very next to Buenos Aires. And during some weekends, I ride from Carmelo to Colonia de Sacramento in Uruguay. Amazing. Also Chile, which is also very next to Argentina, and it's an amazing country to do some bike touring.
I love it. And Cuba must have been absolutely spectacular as well because it's, obviously it's a place where Americans can't tour. So tell us a little bit about Cuba. Let us live through, live it
Yes.
and experience it through you.
Well, I didn't know that until I reached Cuba that Americans can go there. Um, I found a lot of Canadians in Cuba, and I asked them, and they don't. Oh no, people from United States they can't come to Cuba, and Cuba is very nice country. The only thing that has to be um, as a bicycle touring in Cuba has to take into consideration that the roads are quite thin and the cars are quite old and they occupy a lot of space. So when two cars come into the road, you really have to get out of the road because it's very dangerous. There's no space in between. Um, but Cuba is fascinating. The climate is just a little bit too warm. The people is amazing. They're really helpful, and as any person going by bicycle, they it's a little bit vulnerable to all situations. So people take that into consideration, and they open their houses. They always offer you something to drink or to eat if you don't have, or even if you have as well. They want to share experience with you because you are from abroad, and this is really interesting. I really find Cubans very open-minded as well.
Well, thank you for that. It's always nice to hear about a place that, some people can't visit. So thank you. So at what point along your journeys, and I'm going to circle back to other tours and other cycling adventures that you've done since then, but at what point did you discover warm showers?
In the Camino de Santiago, I was in, I think it was León, the city of León. I met a couple from Spain, and they first taught me about warm showers. And they talked to me as it's obvious that you have to know warm showers, and I was no, I don't know it. So there I started, and I became I fill my form to be part of warm showers, and I download. I I think there was not an app at that moment. It was just a web page, and I fulfill my entrance to warm showers, and I didn't use it in the Camino de Santiago, but I started using it in the other trips. For example, in Chile, I used it, and also on my trip to Uruguay, I think, yes. But what I like the most is when people come to my house in Buenos Aires. That
Yes.
is spectacular
So
as
you are
well.
a host as well.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. And so tell us a little bit about some of the cyclists that have come through and stayed with you.
Yes, I will talk to you about two couples, one from Italy, great friends of mine nowadays, and back on that time. Their name are Walter and Marinella. They live in La Toscana, and I invited them to my house in Buenos Aires, but I live in a small apartment, but it's quite well located because it's next to all the touristic sites in Buenos Aires, like Recoleta Cemetery, etc. And after some days, I invited them to my father's place because I knew my father would love to meet them, and my sister and family as well. So they went from my home to my father's house, 50 kilometers away. And it's quite, how to say, excited that trip because you have to get out of this big city of Buenos Aires. It can be quite dangerous, but they managed themselves to ride up to there. And they loved my father's place, and my father invited them for, I think it was like 2 weeks. And we had a really good time. After that, it was my vacation time, and they were going to Carretera Austral in Chile. And when they went back, they passed through Bariloche, where it's a city in Patagonia, in Argentinian Patagonia. And I have cousins there, so I encourage my cousins to be host of my friends. And they went to my cousin's place, and I flew to Bariloche to meet them there. And really amazing people, really amazing. And the other guys that also I recall at this time were a couple from England, um, Charlie, and I don't remember her name. Charlie and his girlfriend, they were going to do some surfing in Peru, and they brought their own tables, surfing tables, on their bicycles. I
Oh, there's like
didn't,
a surfboard, you mean? A
yes,
surfboard? Yes.
surfboard,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
And that is quite an adventure because in Argentina, when you reach the Andes, it can be quite windy, and with the that was a whole of an experience to them.
Amazing. That sounds amazing. And I love that you're experiencing all the fascinating parts of bike touring through hosting and touring. Like you're getting both worlds because not everybody has the capacity to host and not everybody has the capacity to do longer tours. And so you're getting to experience both sides, which I'm sure makes you a better guest when you're touring and a better host since you've toured. And again, we can't all do all things, but you have an interesting perspective.
Thank you. Yes, I am going. Well, I'm probably going ahead with what I'm going to say, but when I did Route 40 in Argentina, I also stayed at some warm showers place.
So tell us when that journey was and tell us about it. You're not going ahead. It's okay. Let's go there. I want to hear about it.
Okay. When I started biking, I wanted to do Route 40 in Argentina, which is the most famous route in our country, when I turned 40 years old. That makes a number of sense. And well, I was already 40 and I was not doing this plan. So one day I said, okay, I'm half a year. Next, I will turn 41, so I have to start right now. I started planning this trip, and I met a guy that was going to do the same trip, but just running, like Forrest Gump, you know. So he lived some blocks away from my home, and we have friends in common. So I met this guy, and it was really, really amazing. I'm friend of him right now. Um, and we were the same age. His plan was to do it running at 40, and my plan was to do it by bicycle. So we started on September. He started September the 1st, 2019, and I started in 8 days later, September the 9th, I think it was. And I took a plane to Jujuy province in the northwestern part of Argentina, and from there a bus to the cross border with Bolivia, a small town called La Quiaca, and I started from there all way southbound up to the lighthouse of Cabo Virgenes. This is a 5,200-kilometer way. That would be 3,200 miles approximately. It took me 4 months. I did not ride all the days. Some days I stopped, but most of the days, of course, I ride. The average was like 44 kilometers per day.
And did you complete that while you were still 40? This, Route 40 at 40 years old, or
Well,
had you turned 41?
I turned 41 in the middle, right in the middle of the trip. That was funny because it was just the middle, and I remember I went to a hostel there. I met a couple, elder couple from Buenos Aires. And funny thing was that the man uh, knew my father, and he recalled my father. They worked together back in the 60s in in a dam. My father is engineer.
That is amazing. What are the chances that that would happen?
and I
What
have
a
and I have sorry, Tavali. I have another story similar to that.
Tell
The
me,
first
yes.
guy I met in my trip in Ruta 40 back in Jujuy was had a best friend, which was the person I last met in the Ruta 40. And that's amazing. I think
Such
it's
a
not
small
possible.
world. Yeah, it's such a small world. So on that trip, what was your favorite part of that trip? Like what was the part that inspired you the most?
It's a difficult question, but I think it's Northwest Argentina. If you see the whole itinerary of Ruta 40, you have three very different areas. The Northwest, that is called the Puna. Then the center of the Ruta 40 is called the Cuyo, and the south part is called, well, it's in Patagonia. So I think the toughest are the south and the north. But the north has something unique that is you are very high, 5,000 meters above sea level, a kilometer meter, sorry. That is 16,400 feet. And you get altitude sickness. You may get. I mean, and I was not fully prepared for that part of the road, and I met amazing people there. And I think it's the most when I have to think back about my trip, the first image that comes is I think it's the Abra de la Calle in Jujuy province, in Salta province. Yes,
Yeah, I mean the altitude sickness you talk about that's for a lot of cyclists it is an important facet to consider depending on where you come from and how long you have to allow your body to adjust. Being from Colorado, there's a lot of mountains and I've had lots of guests come from all over, and altitude is a real thing. It really has an impact on our body for sure.
yes, and well, I think other thing is it's a very dry area, um, and for example, your lips might blood a little bit, your skin is very, very dry, and you may get some sort of injuries being so dry as well.
Yeah. Yeah, really interesting that you experienced that at a different part of your tour. And is that when did you practice? I want to talk about this hop on, hop off idea, but did you apply sort of that technique during that part of your journey?
No, because in northwestern Argentina, you have a small town very next to each other. So maybe 40, 50 kilometers. So you can manage going from one small town to another one. The problem is that in Patagonia, distances are far more separated, the villages. So there, and the wind is such a how to say it, such a pain when you ride. Some days it's almost impossible to ride. So that was really tough. And there I had to apply that technique. Uh,
So tell us
hop on,
about
hop
that
off.
technique, the hop
Yes.
on, hop off. I like the way you've
Um,
worded that, by the way. That's very clever.
Well, as distances are too far away from town to town, maybe one day you don't want to just put your tent on the side of the road. You are tired. I wanted to sleep on a bed. So what I did is at the side of the road you always have the kilometer of the road, and I said, okay, I end up here, and tomorrow I will continue in the same exact point, but now I will hitchhike to the following van or truck that comes in. Mostly I decided to go forward, no, but some days as the traffic is not that intense, if there's coming a van on the other side of the road, and maybe I go back to the town I already passed. It was not the most of the time, but sometimes I have to go back. And the following, I slept on a bed on a small house, and maybe um, we have here Gendarmería Nacional that will help you, or maybe the police will give you some shelter. Infinite possibilities. And on the following day, I hitchhiked the same up to the point where I left the day before. Did I make myself clear?
Yes, yes. So you're basically saying that when there's longer stretches between towns and you don't want to just sleep on the side of the road, that you look for a car or a van or someone to pick you up and give you a little bit of an advancement along the way, so you're
Yes.
not spaced out so far. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's interesting. I actually I haven't heard too much about that, and what a really brilliant idea.
Thank you. That was just when I was too tired. Most of the time, I just slept on the side of the road, maybe under a bridge, or next to a river, all that. But some days when you are 40, you want to sleep on a bed.
Yeah, I understand. So Tadeo, what's next?
What's next? Oh, there are lots of possibilities. I would like to finish the Carretera Austral in Chile. I did with my father the northern half, and I want to do the southern part. Um, Maybe with my girlfriend, but I just gave her a bicycle. We have to do some tours before.
We've recorded a lot of shows with couples that have gotten to know each other better during
Yes.
their bike tour. So you might want to track those down and listen to their suggestions on how to be compatible at bike touring.
That's wonderful. I will check on that.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be great. That sounds wonderful. And for people that might want to, visit you or follow you on social media, do you have any links that you can share so people can get in touch?
Yes, I do. For this trip, I have Facebook and Instagram, which is at Plan R40, Plan R14, R for route. Um, I will provide you that, so anyone that can contact me and see the pictures, the places I've been, they can see that.
Wonderful. And we'll put those links in the show notes so people can find you. And so, yeah, this has been really great. Thank you, Tadeo, for taking the time. And of course, if anybody is going through Buenos Aires, they can look you up and come to visit you and stay with you.
Of course, I will be very, very happy.
Wonderful.
Tabitha.
Thank you so much. And for those of you listening, go check him out. Go find Tadeo. Look at his pictures. And there's some great pictures of him and his father and his tours. And stay in touch. And don't forget that we love that you love this show. And if there is someone that you think might enjoy listening, please feel free to share, because sharing is caring. Thank you. And we will be back. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed making it. Wherever you are listening, please leave us a rating and a review, as it helps us reach more cyclists and hosts around the world. Visit us at Warmshowers.org to become a part of our community, or on Instagram at Warmshowers_org. If you would like to be a guest on the show or submit a question, please make sure to email us at podcast@warmshowers.org.